So a while ago, I made a video basically explaining every single legendary card in the game by class and then saying how high of a priority they should be on your crafting list. So basically, it was just a giant tier list of every single legendary in the game. And people were asking me to do that for epic cards because epics are about 800 dust when you consider the fact that you need to make 2, and it's also a really big dust investment. So I'm happy to do it for that one as well, and that's basically what we're going to do today, and it's going to be on a scale of 1 to 5, basically 1 being uncraftable, do not ever craft, is terrible, 2 being like very niche, but maybe, 3 being probably playable, not like super priority, but could be helpful, 4 is fairly high priority, but not like absolutely staple, and then 5 is like a staple card. An example of a 5 would probably be like Secret Passage, a card that's just so good. You have to run it in your deck. So without further ado, let's just jump into this, and I'm basically going over only the craftable ones because there are some that you just get by doing like solo adventures and stuff like that. So these are only the ones that you need to craft. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. Philosophy, boom. Copy the lowest cost demon in your hand, outcast, give both of them +1/+1. I'd say this is like a 2. I've seen it played a little bit. I think that there's some upside, but I really think it's going to be a very, very niche card. I think that it actually has potential in the future if other demons come into the meta and there's more like demon-based demon hunters or warlock decks. So actually, you know what? I'm going to do this based on predictions for the future as well. I'm going to say that this is a 3. I think that this actually has a lot of potential for the future, and that's how I'm going to judge every single card from here on out. The Crescent, I'm going to say is a 4. I've actually found this deck to be really good in Tempo Demon Hunter. And even if you want to do some sort of control Demon Hunter, say not Soul Demon Hunter, but some sort of control, this deck is very good at killing off cards along with Kreen. And also, it's a dual class card. I'm more talking about the whole Hunter combination. It's really, really good. I think that dual class cards in general have a slightly higher priority. So I'm going to say this is a 4. Warglave's probably a 2. I don't see this card being really played that much. It's borderline a 1. Again, it could be good in like a control style of deck where basically you go for like a super late game. You have healing, you have removal. And then eventually, you'll be able to kill all of their things with the Warglaves. But honestly, this is a 2, borderline 1. Ancient Voidhound, also a 2. I don't see this card really seeing play that much unless a Demon Hunter comes into play, in which case there'll be like Pit Commanders and other things in there. It's a similar deck that Philosophy might potentially use later on. But overall, it's kind of just a meh card. You're never going to get to turn 9. It would do well into aggro decks, but very infrequently will it do anything. It's probably about a 2, maybe a 1. So I would not craft it. The Pit Commander is a solid 2. It's not a 2 border 1. It is actually a solid 2. I think that this card has actually seen some play in the meta. Very infrequent, but it has seen some, so I would recommend this card being a 2. I wouldn't recommend crafting it, but it is a very niche card that could potentially see play in the future. Now let's jump into Druid. You have Embiggen. Embiggen's probably, since the Guardian Animals nerf, I think it moved up from like borderline unplayable to between a 2 and a 3 somewhere. I think that if Druid comes back into the meta, Embiggen might be a way in which they do that. But again, not a high priority. Secure the Deck. This card, probably a 2, borderline 1. I'm going to just say 1. I feel like saying these borderlines are really, really hard. This is just a 1. You're almost never going to complete this quest. It's kind of good to discover off of some of the cards that say discover a spell cards. But it's not actually good to just run in the deck, so this is like a 1. Crystal Merchant, actually, in a quest Druid, if you want to play quest Druid, I'm going to say is a 3. I think it's a 3 overall because it is a very good, important card in a specific deck. Fairly niche, but also a pretty decent craft in general. I would recommend it. And yeah, I actually think this card's pretty solid just all around. Crystal Song Portal, probably like a 2. Haven't seen any builds really run it anymore. It used to be okay in Spell Druid back when they had like very, very few minions, if any. But since then, it really hasn't done anything. So a lot of cards so far in these epic categories are not really that good. So far, it's the Crescent and the Merchant. But we're getting into some good cards now. The Anubisath Defender, probably a solid 3, maybe even 4, simply because of the fact that it's able to be a free taunt minion just by playing a more expensive card, whether it be probably like Nourish or this is probably going to be in Quest Druid, by the way. Probably Nourish or maybe Survival of the Fittest, maybe Guardian Animals if you still run it, along with a couple of other cards that could trigger this. I think this card is pretty solid, and a 3. Again, it's not like an absolute staple in a lot of the decks, but it is very, very good overall, and I would recommend it. The Stag, sadly, this really just never saw play. I wish it did. I want to say it's a 2 because the value of this card could actually be kind of nuts. All you have to do is restore 5 health. That's not even that hard to do, but it just doesn't see any play. I'd say it's a 2 just because I really like this card. I've tried to run it in a couple of decks. It hasn't been awful, but there's just no real support for it. But since I think there could be maybe stuff in the future, maybe Druid gets some extra healing, I could see this deck maybe pushing a 2. Force of Nature, I'm going to put both of these combined because they're very similar in what they do, except I think that Glowfly Swarm is just better than Force of Nature, so Force of Nature is like, you know, a solid 3. Glowfly Swarm is a 3 pushing 4. I think that Glowfly Swarm just allows a lot of pressure, and if you go Token Druid, it's just a really, really good card, so I would recommend crafting some of these epics on this page right here. This one for sure if you want to play Quest, and this one as well. And then these if you want to go some sort of Token or Spell Druid. But again, none of these really are any more than 3s because they only really work in a couple specific decks. Runic Carvings, I don't think is very good, but I think has potential. I'd say that it's like a 2 pushing 3. Giving them overload and overloading and giving them rush is kind of nice. It is a dual class card, so it could be used in another class, which is helpful, which pushes it maybe to the 3 category because it's a little less niche because there are more decks that it can be played in, but overall it's not that good. Ancient of Lore has never been the same since it was nerfed. Ancient of Lore, Ancient of War, both of these are like 1s, maybe even 2s. They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. Marsh Hydra, also pretty bad. I've seen some success with it, actually. I'm going to say it's a 2. I've run it in some sort of, like, big druids in the past, and it's actually been pretty solid. Like, people never really expect it to do as much, or they never really expect it in general. But it can be very, 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 very good. I'm going to say Guardian Animals is still, like, a 3. Despite the extra mana cost, I think it's still a very good card as long as, the ramp is still in the meta. So I'm going to say this is a solid 3, maybe pushing towards 4, because of the fact that it's dual class. I don't think Hunter will actually ever utilize this, but it could. I might play Death Rattle Rogue today. I'm not sure. I don't think Death Rattle Rogue is very good. This is a sidetrack on my Twitch stream. And Survival of the Fittest is, I want to say a 3 again, although I do think it's a very, 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 very powerful 3. Again, in terms of the, sort of scale that I'm using, it is only really usable in a couple of decks, and even those only run like 1-ish copy sometimes because it's such an expensive card. So overall, the cards that I would craft are very niche if you want to play a specific style of deck. Now let's go to Hunter. Terrible, not very good. Actually, we can go through this very quickly. Not very good, but maybe good in Face Hunter, probably like a 2 pushing 3. Crescent, like I said, like a 4. Actually, because it is also really, really good in Hunter too. I actually use it in multiple Hunter decks and some Demon Hunter decks, but it's not quite like a staple must-have card, so it's not like a top priority, but it's solid. In fact, it's only a 1 copy, a 1 of in my Highlander Hunter deck. Snake Trap is fine. You only really need 1 copy. I'd say it's a 3. And once Phase Stalker goes out of the meta again, I'm going to say that this is even less, probably like a 2. So yeah, just keep that in mind that some of these cards are good because of what's in the meta. Porcupine, it's like a 2, barely, maybe not even. I've seen some Death Rattle Hunters, so it could be okay. I'm going to say all of these are 2 right here because of the Death Rattle synergy. Stormhammer, as of right now, because the meta's not super dragon-based for Hunter, I'm going to say is a 3, but there was a time when I would have said this was a 5. So just know that these cards can change as the meta continues, just to let you know. That's like a 3. This is terrible. It's like a 1. I'm going to say this card's like, it's like a 3. I've actually seen it played in some versions of Highlander Hunter with a decent amount of success, considering there are some cheap-ish spells out there. So even if you have to like play this in combination with a secret because you draw it instead of getting it with Phase Stalker. You know what? Sorry, 2. I've seen it played a little bit, but not enough to push it to 3. This is like a 1, almost will never see play, and it's rotating soon. This is maybe a, no, I'm gonna say it's a 1. It's really not very playable at all. Guardian Animals, like I said, is like a 3. Nagrand Slam, it's a bit too expensive. I'd say it's like a 2, not really that prioritized. And a Wild Bloodstinger, it's rotating soon, so I'm gonna say it's like a 2. But I actually think that this card could have been kinda playable, especially considering it takes a card out of the opponent's hand. Like, the only problem is it's 6 mana. If this card was 5 mana and like slightly different stats, like a 5 mana 5/7 or something like that, this card would be absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. It would be able to just stop maybe pen flingers. It would be able to stop a couple of other things as well. When is the next rotation? I honestly have no idea. Devolving Missiles, probably a 4. I could see this being in Highlander decks. I see it in some Tempo Mage decks. I see this deck being a staple like removal card in the future as well. It's super duper strong. Highly recommend it. Back to Smuggler, like a 2. There just isn't enough secret support unless you want to play like Wild or something. Icicle, it's so bad I don't even craft it. What does that tell you? I have like almost every card in the game and I don't have this one. This is just an awful card. Mana Cyclone, it's okay. Because in the deck that it's really good in, it is an absolute staple. But the problem is, based on my scaling, I don't really think I can make it more than like a 4. But I want to make it a 5 because of how important it is to a specific deck. And I know it's getting kind of close to when cards cycle out. But like, even if you craft it right now when I post this video, you have it for at least 6 months. I think that's fairly worth it. I'd say this is probably the first 5 epic. Simply because of how important it is in Tempo Mage. I think this card has, I'm going to say 4, just because it really is only usable in one deck. Final answer is 4, even though I want to push it to 5. But 5 is something that's absolutely staple in every deck. This 4 is something that's a staple in like just 1. So I'm going to say it's a Mana Cyclone. It's a 4. Combustion, a solid 3 pushing 4. I'm not going to say it's a must include in a lot of decks. But it's good in some Highlander decks. I run it in my Highlander deck personally. I've had great success with it. It's a great card to discover. It's a great card to just sprinkle in if you're missing some removal and you're losing to things early. I'd say it's like a solid 3 pushing 4. Spellbinder, it's terrible. It's like a 1 or 2. Potion of Illusion used to be a lot better, but now without Turtle Mage, I think that this is probably a, I want to say it's like a 2. With the potential to be insane. Like, just know that if you craft this one right now, it might not be great right now, but it has the potential to be nuts. It's more of an investment card. So pushing a 3 potentially. Pexis Blast, I actually want to play no minion mage again soon. So I will back when this deck card was good, this card was really good. And I think that it actually has potential to be good in the future. I'm going to say it's a 3. I think that no minion mage has some potential. It's been good in the past. It's going to be in the meta for a long time. And I like it. I like this card a lot, actually. I'm going to say it's a 3. It's more of a personal preference. Mana Giant, it's probably a 4, similar to Mana Cyclone. I'm skipping this one real quick because this one's similar to Combustion. It's a 3 to 4. Very, very good, solid removal, but not really absolutely staple in anything. But it's definitely run in a lot of decks. Power of Creation, I'm going to say it's like a 2 pushing 3. It hasn't been run recently because the meta is so fast and aggro-based, so you don't really have a time to play Power of Creation ever, but it's okay. Pilgrim, after the nerf, it's mostly a dead card, unless you're wild, so that's like a 2. Puzzle Box, good late game potential, I will say. It's probably like a 3. It can be thrown into a couple of different decks if you want it to, like the No Minion Mage. I'm actually thinking about running one copy of this, along with maybe a Reno for my top end, so I'd say this is a 3. Pyroblast, 1 or 2. That's never a card you want to run. Argent Braggart, a 4. In the decks it's good in. It's absolutely insane, but it's not a staple in everything. Micro Mummy, I'm going to say it's like a 2 at best. It could be used in Quest. It's okay as a 2-drop, but it's not actually insane or anything. It's probably a 2. Sanctuary, never seen it played, never going to play it. It's a 1. The Maul, I think, has a lot of potential. I'm going to say it's a 3, maybe even 4 for right now, because of the fact that I've seen good success with it in my Dual Paladin. It went 5-5 overall, which isn't insane, but even in a bad deck, this card came out as a very powerful card. So I'm going to say this is probably like a 3. And it's dual class, so it can be used in Warrior. That means it might push even into the 4 category, in my opinion. Sword of Justice, terrible. It's like a 1. Maybe 2 if you want to go some sort of like really fast aggro paladin deck, maybe, but not really. Angling Rod is actually, in my opinion, very close to a 3 or 4. Even though it's not seeing a lot of play right now, I think that it's a very solid card, and I would recommend crafting it. I think it's good in aggro. I think it's good in some mid-range decks. I've even seen some Lee Broom Paladins run it as a weapon on 3 for some 3-drop play, along with some minion generation. I'm going to say this is a 3, maybe even a 4. It could be like a 3.5 kind of card. Dragon Speaker, terrible. Never seen it played, never played it. Duel, I personally like to duel a lot, and it has helped into things like Penflinger, and it has helped into things like Rogue, taking out the Questing Explorer and the Edwin. But I'm going to say this is a 2 because it is very, very niche, and it's really bad in pretty much any other deck, and the deck is not very good right now. Holy Wrath, like a 2. It has some play. I've seen a little bit, which is why I'm not putting it as like a 1, but it's not very good. Devote Pupil. It's in pretty much every single Paladin deck that I've seen recently. I'm going to say that this is a 4 pushing 5. This is a very powerful, very good card, and I would highly recommend it as a craft. Even as a 6-mana 4/5 Divine Shield Taunt, that's just the Sunwalker or whatever. It's literally as good as a card already printed with some good plus. Lightforge Crusader, it's like a 2. It's a very niche card, and the decks that run it usually only run 1. Lay on Hands is a 1. Tip the Scales, it's a good card. I'd say it's probably like a 2 or a 3 if you want to run Murlocs. And Libram of Hope is probably about a 4, maybe 5. Although I'm going to say it's like a 4 only because it's not as versatile as Devote Pupil. Thank you so much for the follow, Serpinski. Means a lot, my dude, and I will thank you more when I finish this up. But yeah, Libram of Hope, it's a very, very good card, but really, again, not used in like every deck, but used in most. Priest. Priest is the deck that I am the least versed in, but I will do my best with this one. Lazul's Scheme, people can run 1 copy. I'd say it's like a 2 or 3. I'd say it's a 3. I've seen 1 copy. No, wait, that's not Forbidden Words. Never mind, this is like a 2. It's not really that playable. Envoy of Lazul, thought it would be better, didn't end up being good. It's like a 2. Veilweaver, this is a 5 for sure. It's played in like almost every single mage deck. It's actually, played in pretty much every single mage deck in the game. By far a 5, one of the most solid 5s that I've seen so far, and that you will probably see. Like, Secret Passage might contest this, but this is like a top 3 epic card across the board. Shadow Figure, it's like a 2. I could see it being used in some Death Rattle decks, but I haven't really seen it recently. Cobalt Acolyte, I'm going to say it's like a 4. Very strong card, used in most decks. But since the nerf, it does feel a little bit weaker, but it pushes towards that 5 category, especially with Wave of Apathy being in the meta. Fate Weaver, I'm going to say it's like a 3. Some decks use it. Gallicron Priest can use it potentially, and it's a dragon, so it has some flexibility there, but I haven't really seen it played too much. Mind Games, again, haven't crafted it. What does that tell you about it? It's literally almost unplayable. It's not even like it steals a minion. It's a copy, so it's not even like you can counter their deck by stealing an important minion. It's just terrible. Psychopomp used to be really good. I'd say that it's not that good anymore. It's like a 2 or 3. If Res Priest comes back, this is a solid 3. If not, it's like a 2. Shadow Word Ruin, it's a classic card. I think it's an insane removal. I'm going to say that it's actually like a, I'm going to say that it's actually a 3 at least, maybe pushing 4. Cabal Shadow Priest right now is really good because of Wave of Apathy, but overall I think it's like a 3. I think it's just a slightly worse version of the Cabal Acolyte because it doesn't have Taunt. If this also had Taunt, I'd say it's probably a 4, maybe even a 5, but it doesn't. So, Devote Pupil. Actually, since it's a dual class card, I'm going to say it's a solid 5. Skeletal Dragon's like a 2. I could see it maybe being played, but I wouldn't like go out of my way to craft it, I guess. And it could be used in some sort of Dragon Priest. Flesh Giant, probably like a 3 or... No, I'm going to say a 4. Actually, change my mind. It's like a 4, maybe even a 5. It's dual class, it's very good in Warlock decks, and I could see it maybe at some point being played in some sort of Priest deck that relies more on healing and getting out big cards. And maybe the other Priest Warlock Legendary that summons 4/4s, and more like a tempo or big minion Priest, as opposed to RNG Priest. And then Plague of Death, I think, has always been a solid card, but it's just a bit expensive. People do run in Highlander, though, so I'd say it's a 2, maybe even a 3. Rogue, we're going to try to speed this up. Preparation, solid. I'm going to say it's like a 3 just because it combos really well with things. Bamboozle, not really played. Patient Assassin, it's literally a 1. This I haven't even crafted, so don't craft it. This, like I said, is like a 2 with some upside. Shadow of Death is probably like a 1. Both of these cards are 5. Just across the board, super duper strong. Secret Passage, potentially one of the best epics in the game, and Greyheart Sage combos ridiculously well with Stealth, which is a key component of a lot of rogues right now. Both of these are 5s, very high importance rogue cards. Going on, I mean, this one's like, this is a solid 5. This is a 5, but not like as insane, you know, like a maybe like a 4.8. Steel Dancer, pretty solid. I'm gonna say it's like a 3 or 4 because it's really only good in a weapon-based deck, but it does have a lot of support, so I will say that this is a pretty solid card. Even if it's just a 4 mana for like an extra 1/1 in terms of mana, even if you just get a 1/1 out of it, it's a 4 mana 5/5, which is pretty solid. I'd say that this is a 4 overall. Especially if you play any sort of even kind of weapon-based deck, you could probably throw that in there. Not very good unless you want to go like Malagos, maybe a 2. 1. Oh, this is hard because this used to be insane and it doesn't see play anymore. But if you want to play Death Rattle Rogue, which some people have asked me to play, I have considered putting it in. So barely 2. This card's pretty bad, like a 2. This card's never seen play before in like my entire life. It's a 1. I don't even know why I have 2 copies. I'd even like dust it. And then Unidentified Contract, it's a 1 or 2. It's not really ever going to see play. It has the upside you get from it for being like a better assassinate is very, very little in my opinion. Like one thing will give you 2 coins. So it's essentially just a 4 mana assassinate, which is fine, but not insane. So I'd say it's like a 1 or 2. Devolving Missiles, like I said, is like a 5. Witch's Brew, it's like a 3. I could see this being really good in a control-based deck. Farsight, it's actually in a lot of slower mid-rangey shaman decks. I'm going to say it's a 4 overall. Plague of Murlocs, it'll cycle soon, but it's good removal. But since the meta isn't as catered towards this kind of stuff, unless you play against like paladins and stuff, I think this is like a 2 or 3 tops. Sage is MVP and Rogue, no, true. But the only issue is if some of the stealth things go out of the meta, or like some versions like Gallicron Rogue don't run stealth, it's not an absolute staple card, although in the decks it's good and it's insane. So this is a 5, but not as solid of a 5 as like Secret Passage, you know? But anyway, Plague of Murloc's probably like a 2 or 3. It's good removal. Splitting Axe, I'm gonna say is a 3, and it's very good in some in Totem Shaman for sure. But Totem Shaman's not very good right now, but this is a 3 with some upside. Knuckles, probably like a 2. It's got some niche cards. Cumulus, probably a 2. I've seen it in some quest builds. Doomhammer, a 2. It can be some sort of OTK with Rockbiter weapon. Dragon's Pack 2 as well. Overall, I think this card is fine, actually. I don't know why it's hated as much and is not in any decks. In my Gallicron deck, I still actually kind of run it. I think it's pretty solid, especially potentially it's stopping a Soul Demon Hunter. I'd say this is a 2. Doomhammer is also probably closer to a 3. My bad, I went past that fast. Earth Elemental, probably a 1 or 2. It's a card you want to randomly discover, but not a card you want to just have. Muckmurfer, probably a 2. It could be cool in some sort of big shaman, but not really that good. Shattered Rumbler, I think this could be like a 3. Especially just for the stats and the fact that it's an elemental, and if it gets more elemental synergy as the time goes on. And the effect is solid. It's just Shaman's so bad right now. I'd say that this card has the potential to be even a 4. It's just a Shaman needs a buff. Runic Carving's like a 3, just because Totem Shaman might use it, and it's dual class, and you can give him Rush. Totem Goliath, a solid 4, maybe even 5. No, it's not a 5. It's not in every deck, but a very good card in Totem Shaman. I would say that this is a 4 for sure. Warlock. Like I said, this is like a 2, maybe. This is like a 1. Never gonna see play. Chaos Gazer. I think this could have been good. I want to say it's like a 2. It has some good aspects to it. Dark Glare. It was nerfed, so these cards have slightly less priority right now, but I will say that both of them are still quite solid and see some play. I'm going to say that they're both 3s. Dark Skies is a 5. If you play anything that's not Pain Warlock, you want to run Dark Skies pretty much every time. It's insane removal. The only issue is the fact that it's cycling soon, so maybe a 4 just based on that. Pit Lord is awful, it's a 1. Veiled Worshipper is a 4. You need it in Gallicron Warlock. I'm going to say Dark Skies is also probably like a 4, just because it's cycling soon-ish, but like it's still very good. You can replace this with School Spirits into some early aggro decks, but there are a lot of 3 health minions out there that Dark Skies can deal with that School Spirits can't, so I still think Dark Skies is a much better alternative. Like, you can kill Face Stalker with that. Bane of Doom, I didn't even know this card existed. Same with Darkest Hours and Jumbo Imp. And even Rift Cleaver. All these cards are 2s and 1s. Never craft them. They're terrible. Actually, I'm going to say like all of them are 1s. I tried running Jumbo Imp in a Gallicron version. It needs to be in your hand when it happens, which makes it a little bit weaker. If it was like just in general, I'd say that this card could actually see play. But it has to be in your hand to get the effect, so not really. Void Drinker. I'd say it's a 3. I run 1 copy of it in my Soul Fragment Quest Warlock, which is pretty solid, I think. Earth Elemental is nuts off Jandis. No, I'm saying that you don't want to craft these cards. This is a crafting tier list. And then Flesh Giant, obviously, is like I said, like a 4. I'm going to say it's like a 4. I want to push it to a 5, and I could see it being a 5, but I don't think it'll be like a staple in every Warlock deck, just in like a good amount of them, so it's a 4. Twisting Nether, it's a solid 3. It's a good removal. I sometimes run it in my like slower controlled Demon Hunter decks. It's nice to have. It's a bit expensive, but just a clear wipe of the board as a Warlock to just reset can be really nice. And I'll run 1 occasionally. Shield Slam, boom, 4. Blade Storm, boom, 5. It's running like every single deck, and it'll be here for a whole extra expansion. Maul, like 4. Bloodstorm Mercenary, 3. It's good in some classes. Or some decks. Livewire Lance, like a 3-ish, good in some classes. Shield Slam, I wanted to say it's a 5, but I can't, no, I'm going to say it's a 5. In any deck that's not like an aggro-based warrior deck for some reason, Shield Slam is a staple. So 5, 5, 3, it's good in Rage, but it's going to cycle soon. 3, just because it's going to cycle soon, it's not like huge impact. 4, 2, I could see it maybe making its way into some rush, especially if maybe they run like Gallicron with the Scion of Ruin. We'll get to that in a second. Ramming Speed, I think it's critically underrated. I think that it's probably a 3, but because it sees no play and there might be better options, I'm going to say it's honestly a 2. Wormhole Challenger is a 3 with some plus side, considering when a lot of things rotate out, it'll be a really good 3-drop in my opinion. Omega Devastator, I want to say it's a 2. I feel like this card could still see play and could be good in a slower control-based warrior, but it's not actually that good. Scion of Ruin, ever since the nerf, has not been the same. Gallicron Warlock kind of sucks, and it'll cycle soon. It's a 2. Steel Dancer, like I said, is like a 4. And considering the fact that it's dual class, it could even push into the 5 category, especially if Warrior gets more weapon synergy, because it did get some already. Brawl, 5. Gorehowl, like a 1. Wrench Caliber, I'm going to say it's like a 3, only because it's cycling out soon, and there have been experiments with other decks that don't run Wrench Caliber, which have been pretty successful. But this card's like a 3, maybe 4 if you want to run Bomb. I mean, if you want to run Bomb, it's an absolute 5, but it's like a 4. Hungry Crab could be techable. I'd say that having 1 copy isn't bad. I'd say it's like a 2. Terrible, I don't even craft it. I'm going to say Doomsayer is like a 4. It's very good in a lot of different decks, and will probably see play in like every stage of the game. Throughout the existence of Hearthstone, it will always be sprinkled in. 1, 1. I'm going to say like a 3 or 4. It's maybe even a 4. It's seen play in a lot of different decks, and it'll be in the meta for a while. I'm going to say this is like a 4 level card. So far it's like a 2, maybe 3, 4, 1, 1, 4, 1, 1. Well, okay, I'm going fast. These are like 1s, maybe 2s. There are some ways they can be playable. Like if there are a lot of quest druids, all of a sudden, Grizzled Wizard could be good. I could see this maybe being a 2, actually. So like 2, 2, probably 1, just because it makes your entire deck RNG based. Probably like 1. Could be teched. I'm going to say it's a 2. Could be teched 2. Not very good. It's like a 1, maybe 2. This could be a 3. I could see this deck popping off. 1, maybe 2. Solid 2. I could see this being in some aggro-based decks, maybe even a 3. I'd say this is probably a 3 pushing 4 in any aggro deck. I could see this deck being potentially viable. So I'm going to say this is a maybe even a 4, except for the fact that it's going to cycle out soon-ish. Mischief Maker, I didn't even remember this was a card, so terrible. Unless you want to run this to counterpull Celt, which could be interesting. Ramming speed is dope. That is true. I think ramming speed is actually insane. It's just not really seen. I said it's like a 2, maybe 3. I'd personally put it as a solid 3. Back to the warrior ramming speed card, but we're on this page now, sorry. So I'm going to say this is like a 1, maybe 2 to counterpull Celt specifically. Good in most Murloc decks. I'm going to say it's a 3 or 4, actually. Just because it's good in Murloc decks, and there are a couple of classes that can run Murlocs. There have even been Murloc mages in the past, so I'm going to say this is like a 3 or 4. I'm going to say this is like a 3-ish. 2 to 3. It's really only good in like Pirate Warrior, but it has some potential, so I'm going to say it's a 2. This is honestly one of my favorite like 3-drops just in general. I'm going to say it's a 3 or 4, very versatile. It's easy to sprinkle this card into a deck real quick, just for funsies, to get some extra flexibility. I'd say it's like honestly, like a 3 or 4. Probably more like a 3. This isn't really craftable. It's a card from the adventure, but I'd say it's like a 3. It's solid. Body Wrapper, honestly, it's like a 1, maybe actually a 2. I mean, this could actually be used in some sort of control warlock deck or warrior deck in combination with maybe a like Karagath. I might actually run this in my warrior deck. You know what? I'll get back to you on this one. I'm going to say it's a 2 and try it in my next control warrior deck, because I think that it will help combat fatigue a little bit, and I run nothing but like really powerful minions, which could be really powerful. This is probably like a 2. This is probably like, I mean, for wild, I feel like this could be cool because it's a mech, and I feel like it could be okay in standard if you pump it up a little bit and just make copies, but it's probably like a 2. It's a 1. Maybe in some sort of spell damage mage if you can get it to live for a turn, but it's probably a 2 at best. Keep going. Tech card. This is awful. 1, like border, like these cards I would literally uncraft. They're so bad. This card right here, I'm gonna say it's like a 2 or 3. There's always gonna be some sort of maybe deck that runs it. Big Game Hunter. Solid 2. It's a tech card that you could maybe run. No, stat-wise it's just too bad, but it could be playable. Like 2 is maybe playable. Boom Pistol Bully, like a 3, but again, it's not really a craftable card. Cobalt Sticky Finger, like I said, or no, I haven't said about it yet, but it's weapon removal. I'd say it's like a 3, but it cycles out soon, so maybe a little bit less. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth the craft, but my god, it swings games if you play into Soul Demon Hunter or Warrior right now. Skyfin, and like a 2. I'll give it to it. Like a 1, don't like RNG. I really wanted this card to be better, and if there are like Murlocs or Pirates or Beasts, this card could have potential. I'm going to say it's like a maybe a 2 pushing 3 in some situations. It's like a 2 because it has some way of counterplaying the opponent. 1, 2 just because having ways of counterplaying the opponent can be very important. Obviously a 1. This is awful. It's like a 2. I could see this being playable. I don't want to scam likely call right now. Whirlwind Tempest, it's a 1. It's abysmal. It's an atrocity. Atrocity? Is that the word? It's atrocious. And then 1, and then potentially a 2 or 3 if you go some sort of zoo or wide aggro-based deck. And that is it. Those are all of the epic cards. Basically me going over every single one of them. Sorry this video was so long, but there are more epics than there are legendaries. I am pretty sure about that one. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.